welcome back to the Diablo podcast, episode 3. I am your host, Xanth, and I am joined today by Nineball.
Oh, hi.
And Nerdwords.
Hello.
So, before we get into it, since my safety blanket of Nineball has been on a few of these, told you I was going to do it. Nerdwords, what have you been up to since you were last on one of these podcasts?
Aside from normal day-to-day work stuff, I did move to Wisconsin. I no longer live in Alabama. I'm now in Wisconsin, very close to you, which we talked about that at length. And yeah, gaming like usual, playing a lot of D2, D3, StarCraft 2, like we talked about earlier, and some other stuff too. So it's been a lot of fun, but honestly, just working, gaming, and hanging out.
Awesome. Well, obviously, welcome back. Welcome to Wisconsin. Your complimentary cheese wheel is in the mail. Check for it.
Awesome.
So we're here tonight. We're kind of getting a jump on the podcast because of the most recent news. We got a quarterly update, and we got it early. The last one was in June. Getting this in mid-August caught me a little bit by surprise. So what was your initial reaction? This was a update focused on not the end game, but how the game is going to progress and live on after launch. Focused on monetization, the cosmetics. And we weren't given all the details, but first, when you heard quarterly update was coming, were you expecting anything different? And then obviously, what was your initial reaction to what we ended up finding out? Nineball?
Well, I think it was, Pez had mentioned on Reddit a while ago that there were a lot of concerns about monetization in Diablo 4 when Diablo Immortal came out. And they said that they would touch on it in a future quarterly update. I don't know if he had said specifically whether it was going to be this one or not. But I guess it's I was kind of expecting that this is what we were going to be getting to go through, talk about how they're going to monetize the game, because it is going to be, even though it's a big box purchase, it's a living game. It's going to be a game as a service, and so there's going to have to be some form of continual cash flow into it for development, server upkeep, and such. So it is good that we get to see what those types of systems are going to be. And that as they made it clear throughout the entire post, it's not going to be anything like Immortal. It's straight cosmetics that are going to be available in the system. Nothing that you can pay for any type of character power whatsoever.
And Nerdwords, you hear quarterly updates coming. Were you expecting anything different? And then obviously, upon finding out about cosmetics, what was your initial reaction?
No, so it's pretty much what I expected. I think the quarterly updates have been fantastic. It's really cool that the team has been as forthcoming with at least their vision. We know there's going to be a ton of changes between now and launch and how everything shakes loose, but it's really cool to see that transparency, or at least that seemed transparency. And as far as the cosmetics and all that stuff, it seemed pretty on par for what I was expecting. It's good to see that Diablo is being acknowledged for more than a box game. Diablo's been a live service game since Diablo 1. They've always been that way. They just don't sell that way. They're not monetized that way. But for Diablo to be sustainable and to stop being the redheaded stepchild and get a game, once every maybe 4 or 5 years instead of 10 or more for that matter, it's going to take some real revenue, right? Some real revenue. And Immortal has proved that it's out there, right? There's definitely people that want to spend money on the Diablo franchise for sure. The gameplay is there. It's just a matter of finding the right fit for the community. And I think that's going to be the challenging part. How can you're never going to make everyone happy, but how can you find the best medium to making people happy? And I think keeping the paid stuff cosmetic is the key to doing that. If there's any sort of pay to win, reactionary YouTuber, streamer, nonsense that can happen, it's going to happen in Diablo. We've watched it happen half a dozen times over the last decade. So it's really good that they're putting that message out there quick. I think they said 10 different times that power is not purchasable and it is not pay to win in that post, which is good. What will not be good is if there is some sort of that that sneaks its way into the game through some back channel, because then it's going to look really bad. But I trust the team. It seems like they've got a good mindset for where they're going. I like the vision. I have my thoughts about the different cosmetics and different things and monetization, all that stuff that we'll get into. But overall, it was exactly what I expected. And I think they're handling it in a good way.
Awesome. So I think a lot of the reaction around this is predicated on personal experience. I think if we go back to like Diablo 3, if we were brought in on the current system, there might have been a little bit more backlash, at least from people who are coming from Diablo 2 had never seen anything. In the time since, though, we have seen, and Bearberg, you brought it up, the monetized Diablo Immortal, as well as a myriad of other games. So, prior to going in and digging in on Diablo's form of this, what is your background that you guys bring in dealing with any sort of monetization in games already? Nineball?
I guess, probably like one of my biggest experiences is World of Warcraft, just, the monthly sub, for the, in order to go through and even play the game, even after the big box purchase. As we talked about on the first episode, I've spent a couple $100s in Diablo Immortal as well, with their kind of like their seasonal pass and things of that nature. And otherwise, I've never actually purchased it, but I've seen, the battle pass system for Hearthstone. And so that's kind of like my limitation of games that I've played that have had battle passes and such.
I've played quite a few different kinds of games, not all with battle passes. I am heavily into Apex Legends, though. Apex Legends obviously is a free-to-play service game that uses a battle pass, and I really like the way they do it, and a lot of the free-to-play shooters do it. Because the way it works is, it's $10 for the battle pass, but you get the premium currency that's equivalent to that by finishing the battle pass. So essentially you pay $10, you play through, and if you maximize to each level, which honestly is not difficult to do even for someone who plays casually, if you do that, you earn the credits back to buy the next battle pass for free. So essentially I bought a battle pass for Apex Legends like 6 years ago, and I've never paid a dime for anything else in the game since. That's $10. I've paid $10 for a game that I've played for years. I'd say that's a pretty fair price. In fact, I think I'm kind of getting a pretty sweet deal there. So if it operates like that, hey man, I'm all on board. That's great. Even if it doesn't, I still think there's some room to really create some interesting revenue prospects for them. But keep in mind too, I also work on the retail side of gaming. So I have a different perspective because gaming is a very low margin business that needs to evolve in a lot of different ways. And yeah.
So tangentially, we did bring up, monetization in Diablo prior with Immortal. But the other, I liked the redheaded stepchild comment. The other big monetization that Diablo has attempted before was the auction house. We launched Diablo 3. Was it fine?
We three specifically did it. Yes.
We messed up. No. So they, this is the royal we, they launched Diablo 3 with an auction house in the attempt to do exactly what they're trying to do right now with their cosmetic shop, with the guise of trying to keep the servers running, to keep the game going. And we can all agree that it relatively failed miserably. What was your experience with the Diablo 3 auction house, Nineball?
So I have, as you can see in the background, I got the collector's edition of Diablo 3 as well as the collector's edition of Reaper of Souls, and I made more than enough money in order to pay for both of those and still have some left over. And it's funny because it's like I only made like a couple of $100. It was actually kind of funny, and then now Blizzard's gotten all of it back from Immortal, so it's kind of all circled back, right? But it's like maybe like selling some like crafting materials and stuff like that for gold, which would later then be converted into like dollars to like buy something. But the majority of the money that I made was off of just like one godly item that I found. And instead of using it myself, it's just like, oh, I can sell this, go through. It was right before they did the nerf to attack speed, so it was like, it was some stupid charm that was like max like the 15 or 16% attack speed, a decent chunk of magic find, and I think like some resistances on it or something, but it was just like, I could use this, yes, but it's like, well, that priced out pretty high. And I think I put it up for like $300 or something like that, and it sold instantly, which was just like, shit, I should have put it for more. It's like
Right.
one of those, yeah, it's just like one of those moments. And then everything else was just, like I kind of like nickeled and dimed, and maybe like $5 here, $10 there, or something like that. But then because like the end of the auction house, I had actually switched over to hardcore, and there was no real money purchases. It was only gold. You could only buy, sell, or trade in gold. You couldn't do the real money purchases.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. I started with hardcore and only stayed in hardcore. So as you're detailing out all the winnings you were able to find, I'm just like, I got like 1,000 gold. I didn't make any money, and I shouldn't feel bad, I guess, but sometimes I do. Like, I made some money.
You want to know my secret of how I made money on hardcore?
How?
I farmed burgers.
Well,
all right. I know that we are going to deviate here, but I need this story, Nineball. Oh, please tell me how burgers equals cash in Diablo 3 hardcore.
So the Heraldric hamburgers had a set level requirement of like 30 or something like that, very, very low. But if you were on a level 60 character that was farming them, they could roll level 60 damage mods. Yep. So it was the premium leveling weapon for leveling hardcore characters. That if you got a godly roll on them, it would sell for like a regular one might sell for like 10 million or something like that. But if you got a godly one, you could sell it for 100, 200 million. If you got a really high like level 60 damage mod on a low level Heraldric hamburger. And so that's what I did. And then I also flipped what was it? I want to say it was it the Stone of Jordan? The Stone of Jordan it was the one ring that could roll class skill mods. And I flipped Wave of Light rings. Because it was one of those ones where a lot of the skill mods were garbage because it wasn't just like X% damage or something like that. Some of them were like resource cost. They're not very good, but Wave of Light specifically had crit modifier on it, and so it added to the critical strike chance of the bell, and that one had pretty set prices, and so you could find one for like $1 million, that was like an 8% crit mod with a dex roll on the ring, and it's like, oh well, someone's selling it for $1 million, and I know that one's worth like 9, so I could just flip it.
How'd you turn that to real money?
I couldn't.
Okay, all right.
Because that was on hardcore.
You said you were making cash though, and I was wondering maybe we were getting.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
See, I actually did make some cash too. I actually completely honestly. I really liked the auction house. I thought it was great. I have a very controversial opinion about this, but I'm not a fan of trading and having to alt tab a game, go to a service, and talk to someone on a third-party website, be it for real money or just for in-game items. I think that is a terrible gameplay mechanic. In fact, it's not intended gameplay. And obviously the game creation system in some of those games weren't the best either. So, I thought the auction house in World of Warcraft was the best mediator for that. I thought the auction house in World of Warcraft is very well done, and them bringing that into Diablo was great. Honestly, I think that the biggest problem was the real money aspect to it. Mind you, again, like Nineball, I also made some money too. I sold a trifecta ring for about $220, I think it was. Nice. And went to Taco Bell, used my PayPal card, and swiped it with Diablo money, and I'll never forget that. It was a great feeling, right? So I thought that was pretty cool. And but at the end of the day, them removing the auction house was due to the changes in itemization they made, which led to some of the best changes Diablo 3 saw. So in the end, it was a big positive change. But I actually did not have any outrage at the auction house. If people want to spend, look, I'm old now, right? Like I was 15 playing Diablo 2 in high school, right? I'm old. I have more money than time. If I want to jump in and spend some money on something, then that's what those mechanics are there for. Now, being able to spend money and go be competitive against other players that have an advantage is where I do have a problem with it. But if it's a single player experience or a solo experience or a cooperative experience, I don't have a problem with people spending money to be a little more powerful or get some cool cosmetics. It's when it comes to like things like PvP where you're playing other players and they obviously have an advantage because they spent money on the game and you did not. That's where I think there's a problem. But there's some normalization that can fix a lot of those things in Diablo 4 and in really any game.
I feel like the auction house and trading in and of itself is almost an entirely new podcast.
God, yes.
Yeah. I won't disagree with you. I did enjoy the ease of the auction house. I didn't make any money. I feel like the one schmuck here who just missed the bubble. Like maybe I shouldn't have been such a hardcore purist. Just to get
remember, playing hardcore is all about the sacrifice.
Yeah, clearly it cost me, in my mind at this point, at least $500.
I played hardcore in Diablo 2 for a very long time. When Diablo 3 launched, I made the conscious decision that I would never, ever do that again. And God, I've never looked back. Never even like for a second looked back. So it's been great. God bless all of you hardcore players out there. Nineball, I know, and Xanth. But
I don't out how to not get invited back.
Just to remove your safety blanket, I don't play hardcore anymore myself, just mostly because of time restrictions.
But you will in Diablo 4, I can only assume.
Sure.
Not if there's open world PvP, he won't.
I think
I enjoy myself some PvP. So yeah, if I'm gonna die in PvP, I think I'm gonna play softcore, just for that aspect of the game.
Now, before we delve into it in a little more detail, one of the bigger controversies around what was announced is the concept of paying for cosmetics, right? In a game that is centered around finding, good loot and loot that looks cool. Do you feel that the path that the Diablo 4 team has moved into runs counter to that, since you can now purchase something and look as if you are powerful while not actually having found or earned that item? Nineball?
This one, I think, you being a Path of Exile player might actually be able to speak to more, since PoE is a free to play game that mostly comes off of one, purchasing your stashes, and then after that purchasing your cosmetics. Where some of the complaints that I've heard levied against PoE is, if in order to look cool, I have to buy something. And that a lot of the cool looking armor sets and such are hidden away behind these paid tiers, and that was a concern that I also saw that people were having about Diablo 4. But then reading this and going through and seeing the different sets that were available, and then going through and showing off, for me, both the Rogue and the Necromancer sets, the ones that you found in game, are better than the paid ones that they showed off. I'm sure that was done, on purpose. The Barbarian one, I do actually like the paid cosmetic one a little bit more than the one that you find in the game. But yeah, they're definitely at least on par. And if they're going to be going for maybe it's like a theme, type thing where you'll have Season of the Wolf or something like that, and so it's all like wolf-based cosmetics and such. But if it's just about giving options and that you can still find cool things in the game, I'm fine with it, because it then continues to reinforce that it's entirely optional. If it goes through to the point where only the cool transmogs are available through the shop, and that I can't find anything awesome in the game or on a free-to-play track on the battle pass, that's where it begins to become a little bit of an issue in my eyes.
Nervous?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with cosmetics at all, paid or not. I don't see a problem with cosmetics. In fact, I think that most of them, like Nineball, I like the free ones better. In my opinion, less is more with cosmetics anyways. I'm also someone who plays World of Warcraft and does not transmog until I'm fully geared and don't change gear for a while. It's almost like I want to look like trash until I'm God tier, right?
Yeah.
Do the same thing with Diablo 3 every season. Like the first probably 600 or 700 Paragon, I just look like a garbage can. But then once I get my set and there's less upgrades coming, then I put the transmog together. So there's like a conscious effort for that for me. And honestly, like it's just like when I'm playing the game, I'll be able to say, hey, you have that skin, you spent the money on the game. So I like it and I don't like it, but the reason I don't like it is because of the toxicity in most communities that can happen, because then it becomes, a lot of slander and stuff said to people because they spent money on the game. And I don't think anyone should have a problem with that as long as, again, it's cosmetic only, that sort of thing. But like 9-ball, I think a lot of those sets look honestly kind of silly.
Yeah.
I think
they look like bosses in Final Fantasy games and less like Diablo characters.
I'll go into my Path of Exile experience in a moment, but I think you brought up an interesting point there, in other words, of that clear line of demarcation between those who will have purchased something and those who will have not. Do you think that's something we would see, or is it likely that we're just going to be inundated enough that it just won't be noticeable? Nerdword, 9-ball.
I guess, it's kind of like going back to my point. I think it's really going to be one of those ones where it's like it matters more so just like how over the top the purchasable cosmetics are going to be. There will of course be, as we saw in World of Warcraft like last year with the whole /spit controversy and such, where someone went through and gathered a small portion of the community to go and just spit on anybody that had a purchasable in-game mount, and that you'll have those people that will see any form of in-game purchase on something that they paid a sticker price for is just an unforgivable crime. And while I 100% don't agree with that, because if it is a live service game that it does not have a monthly subscription, or even if it does have a monthly subscription cost, if those portions of the proceeds are then going back into the development of the game, by all means, but still try and make it a little bit fair, so that way if I choose not to spend any money on the game, that I can still have really cool loot, and I feel that level of enjoyment for going through and grinding all those hours.
Yeah, I would say the short answer is yes. Yes, that is going to happen. This is Diablo. There's going to be toxicity in the community, especially when it comes to paying for things that are cosmetic or not.
Toxicity in the Diablo community?
Yeah, man. It's look, like most of us are in our 30s and 40s at this point, so we're just getting grumpier as we get older. But the point is that, like, I think that there are some games that do it well, and I think that any cosmetic that you can pay to get, I think should also be earnable through playing the game. I really think that games like Fortnite and Apex Legends have mastered that, where like as you rank up through the battle pass, you earn bits and pieces of that premium currency. And at the end of that, you have enough currency where you can buy a skin for one of your favorite characters. Now, mind you, it takes a while to grind it. You can't just jump in and play a game and get it. But you can grind it out. So if it takes 40 hours of gameplay to grind out a skin that might cost $10, I don't have a problem with that. In fact, I think that would be preferred. If they are only paid, then I think you are going to see that dichotomy a bit. Now, mind you, do we really need to feed the trolls or care about that toxicity? No, let's ignore them. But at the end of the day, I don't have a problem with the cosmetic part of it, but that is absolutely going to be I mean, you can't join a bail run in D2 Resurrected without someone spouting some sort of bullshit. So, I mean, there's going to be toxicity.
I mean, that actually is a good point, because they did say in the article that the seasonal pass itself will reward that premium currency.
Right. So that tells me that that's going to be there, which is cool.
Yeah. We just, though there are the free and the paid tracks on the seasonal pass, so we're not sure where exactly that premium currency is going to come from. I imagine, that there's going to be like some of it has to be on like the free track, because that's how they get you, right? Yeah. We'll just give you the little bit, so that way you get the taste.
Yep.
So coming from Path of Exile, since it was brought up a little bit earlier, so Path of Exile system is a little different. Essentially, they do a league, much akin to a Diablo season, and prior to a league, they will put out supporter packs. Now, initially, years and years ago, when they were a much smaller company, the thought process was, hey, it's a free game. This is how you support our development, and the supporter pack would come with a certain amount of tokens that you could use in the in-game shop. as well as a full set of armor depending on what tier that you had chosen, some weapon effects, so on and so forth. And then they started adding in layers as you would go. But normally, every league, I would find myself, not every league, but every now and then, buying a pack, feeling good about supporting the company, and then, decking out my character. But to what you had said before, Nineball, a big problem with Path of Exile's itemization and visuals at the end is if you don't have a cosmetic, you look like a hobo. Like, there is very few items that you can slap together on base that would work, that are logical in a build that would make your character have that kind of cool-esque look, and it's weird to talk about looking cool, right? But you want your character to look cool. You want it to look powerful. You want it to be this thing. And that's where Path of Exile, especially at the end, does not really make it happen. You feel the need to kind of go in. Now, one of the things that Path of Exile has that we weren't told anything about, but we do know it's in other Blizzard properties, is a loot box. So the way it works in Path of Exile is you have your little bits of your gold, or I forget off the top of my head what it actually is called, and you can use it to purchase a small little mystery box for 30, I think it is, which is equivalent to about $3. And that will get you one random thing. It could be a piece of armor, it could be a helmet, it could be wings or anything like that. Is that something that we could expect for Diablo 4 to see some sort of a loot box? Because that is a much more contentious area because you deal with the randomization.
There's no way.
Doubles.
If they put loot boxes in Diablo 4, then no one on the Diablo 4 team has any idea who their community is and how they'll react. That's just me being honest. Like, if they announce loot boxes for the game, there's going to be big backlash. I mean, right? Nineball, what is your thought there?
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of the loot box mechanic itself. Mostly, it's just like some of my brief experiences in the early days of Overwatch, which I learned that I'm not a FPS player. Is that like there is some really cool cosmetics. Just let me buy it. Like,
Right.
just let me buy it. Like, the loot box was incredibly off-putting. Even like in this particular situation where it's not the only way that you can get it. It's just like a nice little bonus or something like that. But no, I don't want it. I don't like it. Especially just a lot of the issues that are going on with like some of my problems with like Diablo Immortal, where even though it doesn't affect me, like going through and realizing, like the whole thing with, in order to get your free like rare crest every day in Diablo Immortal, you have to go to the actual challenge rift. So it's something that is like it's pulling you in, it's pushing you in a direction to try and reinforce behaviors which just aren't good. The kind of like gambling in and of itself like is not good, and that's just something that you can see someone that's just like, oh, I can save money by trying to get it this way, or taking the negative route, would be that eventually there will be a cosmetic that you can only acquire through the loot box. Heroes of the Storm also did that at one point, because the Heroes of the Storm, originally everything was in loot boxes, but then they made it so that way you could craft. You could either purchase or craft anything. You could just play the game. You'll get enough currency. You'll get free loot boxes, which will give you currency that you can then craft or purchase any of the skins or cosmetics that you wanted in Heroes of the Storm. But there was an exception with the Diablo, the Diablo 3 Diablo. That skin you could only get from loot boxes, and there was no other way of acquiring it. And that was one of those ones where it's like, well, that's shitty, And so
can we acknowledge the fact that Nineball just said gambling isn't good, as someone who's played Diablo games for 25 plus years?
That's fair. I'll take that one. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things that's just like, it's not something that I could, even if it's in its most like benign shape, it's not something that I would approve of.
And I think that's fair. And following up on the Path of Exile loot box system, it does give you the opportunity after the season has ended. They do release all those items to the shop, and you can buy them with your regular currency if you want. But you have to wait, and they do have a tendency to give you a free loot box at various points, so you can easily find yourself getting sucked in.
It's only $3. Why? What the hell? Yeah. But I think at least for the when it comes to Diablo 4, they got rid of loot boxes in Overwatch. So I don't think that one is really too much of a concern for that type of thing showing up in D4.
Well, here's to hoping we can always end up being pleasantly surprised. All right,
Yeah.
so let's dig into the update itself. So I will state I was a little excited to get an update around itemization. That was something I was hoping I would see.
That is the ace up their sleeve. They will not drop that till 3 weeks before the game comes out. What are you talking about?
I got an opinion on this one.
What you got, Nemo?
There's no point in having an update on itemization.
It's true. It'll be completely different by the time game launches, right?
It's that one, especially like for the past couple of years when the itemization itself. The first look at itemization that we saw was the ancient demonic and angelic powers. That's no longer a thing. That one got scrapped and all other types of stuff. So yeah, going through and talking about itemization is meaningless, especially until we're actually like locked in right before the game itself is going to be released. Or even about like looking at like Diablo 3 as an example, itemization changed completely like 6 months into the game. They realized that legendaries were garbage and they had to revamp the whole system. But we've not played the game. We have no idea what they could show us items, and we have no idea what any of it means. And that's one of the things that always makes me giggle when I'm going through a Reddit thread and someone is just like tearing in, oh, this item is boring, it's trash, and all this other type of stuff. It's like, how can you tell? Like, how can you tell?
You have zero context.
We have zero concept about any of these things. We don't know what any of those numbers mean. We don't know what those values stand for. It's just like, oh, the stats are too high. Oh, the stats are too high. How high is 50 dexterity? Where on the scale is 50 dexterity? Please tell me, since you obviously know more about the game than I do. But it's just.
I will tell you, it's higher than 49.
Fair.
It's lower than 51. So obviously, they know.
Obviously, yeah. And it's one of those ones that until we actually understand the game, and one of the big things that they've gone through and they've talked about is spreading the player power over multiple systems. And so itemization is just one component about how that your character is going to grow. Between like the skills, the Paragon boards, which they also showed off a little bit in this update. We have no idea. Is +4 to a skill good? Is +4 to a skill low? Is or is like +1 to a skill high? We have no idea what any of those things mean.
But what are the items now? I just want to see some stuff, okay? Or they could just get that beta going, and
there you go. That's when you.
That's what we want to see, right?
Right. That would have been a great update too. I will settle for this.
Well, you got the tattoo though, so you actually have access once it does go live, right?
I will believe it when it happens. I have a recurrent nightmare at least once a week that I did put my email in wrong, and somebody else out there is going to get it. God. And I looked a couple times, so I felt confident, but that was weeks ago, and maybe I was wrong. So I don't know. I do have a tattoo, so that's cool too, right? And that was free. Beta would be nice, but again, hopefully I typed my email in correctly. It was a long morning. I was tired. and nervous, excited. So who knows? One last thing, if we're going and Path of Exile is still within the conversation here, one of the things that was not brought up in this update, and we talk about purchasing things and purchasing cosmetics, the stash. So it is argued within Path of Exile that while it is not pay to win by any means, being able to purchase additional stash tabs is in some ways a way of getting an advantage, because now you have the capability to store more stuff. And in the case of Path of Exile, you have the ability to sell your stuff or through trade. This was noticeably absent. Now, there was a lot of argument that there is no comment on in terms of being able to buy power, and technically it's not. Will we be able to purchase stash tabs, or is this something that, much like what we've seen in Diablo 3, that we earn them over the course of it? Or maybe there's no stash. Maybe it's completely different. I don't know. But is a stash tab purchasable 9-ball?
So my thought process on this one immediately goes to Amazon's what was their MMO, New World? Yeah. Okay. They created problems in the game to sell you quality of life solutions for. And if the game opens, if Diablo 4 opens, and they're like, hey, if you're running out of space, we'll sell you a stash tab for $10. No. So it's one of those ones. I want enough room and space that I can go through and store like the season's worth of items and stuff like that. Even if it's, say, like it's Diablo 3, and by the end of a season, like I've maxed out the stash space for like one character, maybe a little bit for like an alt, and it's in that one I've got enough space. I deem that is good. That's fine. And I'm willing to buy more stash space so that way I could like fully have the gear for like a second or a third character or something like that. But if I find myself running out of room in a season on just a single character before I roll any alts or experiment with anything else, then that I feel as if they've not given me enough space to like really play the game. And while I'm always for having the capability of purchasing additional stash space, I want it to be because I'm an obsessive collector that wants to hold on to everything, and that's why I don't have enough space for what my needs are. But I don't want to run into a scenario where I'm going through and it's like, man, I only have like 2 stash tabs, and that's like 3 loadouts of gear. I can't even roll another character, type thing, because there's just no stash space, for me to do that. And so that's kind of like where my thoughts go to it.
So I go a couple different ways in this. First of all, anyone that says buying stash tabs is pay to win is an idiot. Stop being a hoarder. Do better. Know the game you're playing and throw some stuff on the ground. You'll live. That's the first thing. The second thing I would say is that I have no problem with people buying stash space. If you would like to be a hoarder and collect, that's great. I find it really not great that if you're doing like a Holy Grail run in D2, you physically can't hold all of the items to do a Holy Grail run unless you make alts to mule those. But that's been a problem of Diablo forever. And I think that the other side of that coin is that the Tetris or the what should I keep, what should I toss conversation is also part of the interesting part of the itemization. So I think that by allowing you to buy infinite amounts of stash space, you really kind of kill one part of the itemization that's important. And that is you should be keeping what's important, not everything. If you can just keep everything, then everything matters. And one, again, do better, stop hoarding. But two, if you can't do that, then I don't have a problem with people being able to pay for it. There's definitely been moments in Diablo 3 and in Diablo 2 where I'll give you $100 for a stash tab right now. Like, please God, right? But I do think mind you, obviously we didn't have the ability to do that. I have no problem with people doing it. I never would, but I'm also like the kind of person that plays one class forever. So I don't really have that many issues with doing alts.
I like that the advice is you need to Marie Kondo your staff. If it doesn't spark joy, get rid of it.
I mean, and just speaking from personal experience, when Diablo 2 Resurrected came out, I played Diablo 2 my whole life basically, but since Diablo 3 came out, I pretty much had just been playing that game and hadn't gone back and played D2. So when D2R came out, I actually didn't even plan on getting it. I was like, you know what? I've spent so much time playing Diablo 2. I do not need to go down that path again. I felt the same way about Vanilla WoW. I was like, this game came out in 2003. I'm good, right? Like, it's 2022. Games have evolved and should have. I'm not going down that path. And then I got to play the free open beta, and I literally have played nothing but D2R pretty much since. So it's great. It's fantastic. But one of the first things getting back into the game was remembering and learning, what do I need to keep? What do I not need to keep? What's worth tossing? What can I go find at a moment's notice? And so the first non-ladder play, my stash was overflowing. I couldn't keep up with it. But by the time the ladder season launched, I'm having zero problems with it now. In fact, I went through and deleted like 7 different mules. I'm like, I don't need any of this crap. It's all stupid. So I think once you learn the game, it gets a lot easier. But really the learning curve and I think how that applies to the player is going to be super important.
And what is the one class that you're no-lifing, by the way?
Well, it's Wizard in Diablo 3, Sorceress in Diablo 2, and Sorcerer in Diablo 1. It's always casters, except for in WoW, because casters in WoW are trash, and if you play them, you're an idiot. In WoW, rogues are the way to play. So.
Nineball, what are your thoughts on his class choice?
I mean, it's closer to a necromancer, so it's okay. It's a little bit of a pass.
It's funny that I'm bringing this up because this is actually the first season where I'm not playing a wizard. I'm actually rolling necro this season. I have played roughly 15 to 30 hours on every class, but I have about 6,000 on the wizard in Diablo 3. It's pretty lopsided, but with the Hadrig's Gift being what it is and Necro's power being where it's at, I'm going to be running a Wrath of a Wizard. That'd be something.
That would be interesting.
Oh yeah.
Let me know how that works out.
But I am excited to try out the new Taurasha changes for the wizard. Obviously, they didn't have them on the PTR the way they are going to be launching. It's live right now, but I haven't, I'm talking to you guys, so I haven't tried it out yet. So we'll see.
All right. Well, eventually you guys all come around to the Druid and things will...
Ooh, literally, by the way, when you said that, I said ooh out loud in my car when I was listening to the podcast. Ooh, Druid. Come on, man. There's so many better choices. I got love for you, Xanth. I got love for you.
I just like them. It's I just think they're neat. And I'm gonna die on that hill since they're back. So
that's fair.
I am very excited for it. All right,
don't worry. I'm sure that there's at least like one other person out there that will die on the hill with you.
Yeah, there's a few. I got a couple buddies.
See, it's not one of us. There are dozens. Okay.
And then after you're done dying, I'll come along and res you.
There you go.
And then you'll be playing a necro,
minion.
Yeah.
At that point. But I'll be playing hardcore, so none of you will be there to help in that regard. So let's actually go into the well, first, before they even go into the battle pass, we do get the return of seasons, right? Seasons are going to be in Diablo 4. Is this a good thing or a bad thing, Nineball?
Oh, I mean, it's like this is just kind of like part of the ARPG experience, right? Is going through having the seasonal play, having the characters refresh in order to redo the experience. Because for me, it's always the enjoyment is like the loot hunt, and eventually you get to the end game, and it's about maximizing or min-maxing those last few pieces of gear. Oh, I can get 20 more dexterity on this piece, or 1% more crit chance, or something along those lines. And at that point, for me, the game begins to fall off. It's more about the gearing up as opposed to the perfecting is something that I enjoy a lot more. And so I'm looking forward. I'm glad that they're making the announcement, because that was one of the big ones, of course, with Diablo 2. Or Diablo 2 Resurrected, is when they announced that it wasn't going to launch with a season, and that caused a lot of uproar and stuff like that. Slightly different reasons because of the crafting item drops and such that can only occur, on a season in D2. But it's something that people are looking forward to. Something that people want, especially now in like a modern day ARPG like Diablo 3, like Path of Exile, where there also could potentially be like seasonal themes or things that they go through to change up the game. Diablo 3 is a lot more of just like one shot. Wouldn't this be cool? Or almost like Diablo what if type stuff where they'll change some things radically, and it creates a unique experience that you can really only engage with on that one, versus Path of Exile, where to my understanding, not a PoE player, it is more that they're rolling out kind of permanent or somewhat permanent game mechanics that will be folded into the base game itself as time goes on. And so I think that would be more of a cool, or what my expectation for a Diablo 4 season is going to be, as opposed to just new start character, especially with the seasonal passes and the game as a service with the microtransactions through cosmetics and stuff like that. I think I do have a slightly higher expectation of what they're going to bring to the table every season than I would for, say, just a regular Diablo 3 season, which, I haven't put any money into Diablo 3 since I purchased Reaper of Souls. And I continue to be thankful for, here we are, 8 years later, and still getting free updates for the game.
And see, that's a problem, right? So just can we pause real quick? That's a problem. Because I haven't either, right? I know my job bought several copies on several different consoles and PCs for my family and whatever else too. But but at the same time, I'll go buy the $120 Legacy of the Void Collector's Edition just to have a probe droid pet. Let me just buy that pet for $10, right? Missed opportunity. So that's the problem with Diablo monetization right there. There's
Technically, I bought a $50 war chest for StarCraft 2, so that way I could get the what was it? The Nether. No, it was the evil probe.
Oh yeah, I know.
The Tal'Darim, that's what it was. The Tal'Darim probe from the war chest.
Yeah. But no, I'm in agreement with Nineball. The one thing that I'm a little more apprehensive about the Diablo 4 season pass, seasons rather, only because it's announced before the game. That's never been the case with the Diablo game, right? Like ladders were not a thing going into Diablo 2. They became a thing through development. Seasons were not a thing in Diablo 3. They became a thing through development. Now they're saying ahead of time, hey, we're going to go ahead and do this thing, which is good. And I think we all expect that. I think a Diablo game without some sort of ladder reset, fresh economy is very strange. That said, make the content in the game robust and impactful enough to have me coming back to play it without the need for a season for the first 6 months, I think would be a more impactful statement. And then saying that you would have the ability to transition into a seasonal type theme later or a ladder season later would be great. Either way, I expect them to say that we're going to have it. I expect to have it even if they don't say we're going to have it, but I'm a little apprehensive about the fact that they're announcing it before the game's even out.
I can get that. I think it does make what then follows in the update a little bit more understandable. Like, we're doing seasons, and as a result, we're going to have a monetization that becomes attached. Nineball, you had mentioned Path of Exile, since apparently I'm the PoE guy now.
You are. You absolutely are. Neither of us can.
Yeah.
Nope.
We don't care about that game.
There it is. But the way it works is, every 3 months you have essentially what is a new league that gets announced, and then every year there's a new expansion, so they just add different mechanics. I would love to see Diablo do not going full on what Path of Exile does, because I do think that is that's a rough development cycle, but I would like to see a little bit more than just a season where maybe we're introducing a small concept, but not as far where we're introducing major sweeping mechanics and everything. But like that middle ground, I think if that's happening, I'm all for it.
Mm-hmm.
The other part is too, though, as long as there's a reset, I'm happy. I love the end of a season. I love that, like, there's a timeline for this character or all the characters within it. They only can exist in this experience. And if this doesn't go well, right, I'm not stuck in an economy that I'm never going to get, anywhere in. I'm going to get a fresh start. I'm going to get to start at level 1 with a bunch of goobers like you. And well, not really, because you won't play hardcore, but
Damn.
But
shots, man, all day.
Yeah, sorry, but I'll get to start fresh again, and I like that is
playing hardcore again.
Yeah, you'll start
and
fresh
again.
a lot.
Yeah, but
Again.
here's the thing: if you die enough, you get really good at the first 20 levels.
Nice.
And you just get to play them all the time. But that to me is one of the best experiences of like a Diablo or an ARPG is that starting fresh where everybody's on the same footing. Nobody's got the god tier gear, or in the case of what we're seeing with like Paragon boards, like, no, we're all going to start fresh on this day. And it becomes like that awesome event, where you get excited for it. And I'm already planning ahead for the newest Diablo season, but that's still different, right? That game's been out for a long time. While we're introducing new things, it's still not as groundbreaking. So when Diablo 4 is coming out like this, and knowing that there is a nice timetable for it, I'm pretty jazzed.
Yeah.
That's it. We're on the 27th season of Diablo 3, and I'm still going to play it like a degenerate all weekend, like I always do, every single season. So, like, they've got me on that. But also, the gameplay loop in Diablo 3 is very compelling and fun for at least the first few weeks. If you're someone who pushes that 4-player meta and pushes the higher greater rifts, that it's even more fun. But it's just one of those things where, like, every ladder reset on Diablo 2, every ladder reset on D2R, every season in Diablo 3. I've been a part of all of them because it's just fun to get together with your boys, jump on Discord, whatever, and play Diablo all weekend, and then at the end of the day, go back to work, right? So it's just it's a nice little getaway, a nice little staycation, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The other thing, that they did briefly talk about with the Diablo 4 seasons is that it's also going to be their avenue for introducing, new quest lines, lore, characters, and things like that into the game.
Incredibly exciting. That's really
So it is one of those ones that they are going to use it not just like for game mechanics, but they're also going to be using it in order to expand, the story and the depth of Sanctuary itself. So it is going to, potentially have a lot more than just, the same game with a few new dressings. There might be, who knows, whether it's going to actually add on to the campaign, or if there's going to be just little quest zones and stuff that you can go through and do, kind of like when they introduced the Shrouded Moors in Diablo 3 or the Greywater.
Yeah, I think we are given that little highlight of the Paragon boards, right? And we've only been teased the system just a little bit. Obviously, we understand how Paragon works in Diablo 3 and transitioning into this board like system. So we have our talents for our class, and then as we're leveling, we're getting these Paragon points, and it's not a set feature, but we have these different boards that we're able to slot in. And that is a system that I'm very excited for, and I think has a lot of those, possibilities for expansion, because you can craft a whole bunch of new Paragon boards that could be introduced into a season, and that completely shakes everything up. Where suddenly, what might have not been viable last season is now something that is, maybe it's not even becoming S tier, but it's just something that is fun and you weren't able to do before. Any thoughts on those Paragon boards? We only saw the one, but in terms of expansion, Nimo?
I mean, it's nice because it's non-set progression, so you can do it as you come into it. From what I want to say, it was it was one of the developer updates last year when they first introduced the concept of the Paragon board, and that you have even the control about how you connect the boards together. That means that you kind of like what you mentioned, that they can introduce new boards. They could have a season specific board with special bonuses in it and such, and that it matters how you slot that or connect it into the other ones in order to make new or different experiences. And so I do like that potential. It's kind of like the Diablo 3, say that you had the Paragon cap at 800, and then they change out the affixes on a season or two. So instead of getting critical hit damage and critical hit chance, they get elemental damage and something else. I don't know. But it's just it makes it interesting because you can go through and you can fundamentally change the aspect of how you're actually like building your character by adding or taking away the boards and how you more or less, from what we've seen, build yourself.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I don't have a big opinion on this without it in my hands to like interact with it. It's hard to say because I don't know how impactful the decision making will be on those boards. I think the problem you have with Paragon points in Diablo 3 is that it's endless, meaning that it's an advantage for those that have endless amounts of time and a disadvantage or dissuading for those that don't. And I think that's the biggest problem Diablo 3 has, honestly. I honestly wish they'd implement a Paragon cap. I think that'd be great, and change some things in Diablo 3. But the other side of that, though, is how those points factor in. I'll be honest with you. It looks like way too much shit on one board for me and not necessary. Like, there's not a need for that many, like, choices. Like, it's a lot of choice. Even Diablo 2, like going back to that skill system, while it is a good skill system, is still like there's some really dumb choices on there. Like, why do I have to put points into this to make this more powerful? Realistically, that doesn't make sense from an actual, like, it makes sense in the game, but outside of the game thinking about it, it's just a waste of time and energy. Let me just power up the thing I want to use and move on. Now, I don't think Diablo 3 system is perfect either. So I'd be curious to see how it all plays out, and I really want to see it get my hands on it. But I'm very much a fan of like make things easy and streamlined so I can play the game, right? Like I just want to play the game. I don't want to sit in town for 35 minutes trying to figure out my Paragon boards or trading with some numbnuts on a forum. I want to play the game that I paid for, and I think Diablo 3 has done the best at that of any ARPG out there, where they reward gameplay more than anything else. That's where you get all of your loot. That's where you have the fun, and that's where you keep your progression going. Whereas in Path of Exile, Diablo 2, even Diablo 2 Resurrected, you find moments where you have to go outside of the game and alt tab out to progress or to get that next thing. And I think that's terrible gameplay. So it really depends on how it's all implemented. Again, if it's streamlined to where it keeps me in the game, keeps me engaged, I'm down. If it's something where I'm gonna have to go through like Path of Exile and figure out, okay, what build do I want to do? Which tree, how, like, it's too much, way too complicated for no reason.
Now, I do believe the Paragon in Diablo 4 is capped, at least from what we have been told. Nineball, feel free to correct me on that, but that is for me, one of the bigger selling points is knowing that there is an end in sight, that your character does end, which is awesome. Yeah, because I don't want to deal with a billion points, but I'll manage the 200 or so that I have there. Yeah. So let's
that's definitely like a whole podcast worth of description about one of my biggest things I think that Diablo 3 failed at was the infinite scaling progression.
Yes.
Not entirely infinite, but it created a false pressure for meta builds, which doesn't quite exist as much in Diablo 2, just because Diablo 2 difficulty caps at a certain point, and everyone can kind of get far more powerful than that point to play how they want to play.
Yep.
And so
100%. That's the biggest difference between those two games, and the biggest difference between the fan bases of those two games arguing and bickering with each other. The lack of that understanding. It's literally just infinite power versus capped power. And I think that, like Nineball said, as someone who plays every season competitively, when I hit Paragon, 17, 1800, which is pretty high for me. I typically don't get that high, but sometimes I do. And I'm like competing with people with 4,000 or 5,000 Paragon. I'm like, what the hell am I even doing? I'm going to go outside and do something, because why am I doing it? I'm never going to catch this guy. He's a streamer. He doesn't stop playing the game. So now I'm just dissuaded from playing. And I think that's the problem. I love the Greater of system. I love that aspect to it, but it becomes where if you're not playing every second of every day, you're at a disadvantage. And they ain't paying me to play. So
what you're saying is you're starting a stream and you would like to promote it here today.
They actually do low-key stream most seasons starts, but I'm not a streamer. So
well, you're streaming more than I am, so I'm going to call you a streamer now. Noted streamer, Nerdwords. Here talk about. Feel free, send it to Rush, and he will, put it in the video.
Not safe for work.
As a courtesy. So we'll get that going. Okay. So let's get into the battle pass itself. We have, really two tiers here. We have a free tier and we have a premium tier. What are our thoughts around this little chunk of information? Nineball.
So They don't really talk about what is on the free tier versus what is on the premium tier, except for the seasonal boosts. That there'll be season boosts that they do say that it will award free, underlined, underscored, in your face, free seasonal boosts. So I take that to mean that there's not going to be boosts on the pay track of the season pass, and so that way it's only going to be available on the free tier, so that way everybody is at that same level. And for that, that's fine. It's like like cosmetic rewards and other things like that. That's all the types of things I would expect to be on a battle pass. That's the type of thing that will get my $5 or $10, a season or something like that. Especially if it's going to be for like the entirety, of a season. If we're doing it, quarterly, or if it's going to be like 3 times a year or something like that, or the Diablo 2 every 6 months, that I can feel as if I get my money's worth out of it. And that's for me, that's fine. It also is one of those things that, for myself, when I'm playing Diablo 3, once I hit Guardian, my play and desire to continue the season in D3 begins to drop off, because now I don't have goals. Maybe it will just be, I want to hit, Greater Rift 100 with my Pestilence set or with my Rathma set or something like that. And then I'll hit like those little goals, and then that's it. I'm done. If they structure the seasonal pass in such a way that will continue to keep me, engaged and wanting to go through and play more and push further than I might have with a Diablo 3 season, then hey, that's great. That's fine. It's, Diablo 3 still is one of my all-time favorite games, but sure, after a couple weeks of playing the new season, it gets repetitive. If there was something else to strive for, I would appreciate that additional level of engagement.
Yeah, I think that with the battle pass specifically, I mean, it's pretty par for the course. Most battle passes are the same way. Apex, Fortnite, Halo Infinite, like a lot of the competitive shooters have free and premium tiers, and you earn them as you go. Again, like for example, with Apex, you play Apex, you earn XP during every match that you do, depending on your placement and how you do in the match. But when you buy the battle pass, you unlock the premium level, which unlocks 2 rows of rewards instead of just the one. But you can literally play all the way up to the end of the season and then buy it and get all the rewards for the whole season. Or you can buy it right at the very beginning and earn them as you go. There's no difference in how you earn it. As long as it's that way, I think it's fine. I think if you give any advantage to ranking the battle pass through buying the battle pass, that creates some complication there a little bit, especially, I know they're saying it's all cosmetic, but there's some funny business that can happen there, right? Like it really just depends. So it sounds pretty par for the course. I don't have no red flags are thrown up by me. I think the biggest thing that I have with it is just make the rewards interesting. Make them interesting. I don't care if they're paid or they're free. As long as they're interesting, then they'll be cool, right? But if they're just like sparkly helmets for a barbarian, I don't give a shit. I'm never going to get that.
Cause, I mean, they do talk about in the article a couple of the things, such as what you had mentioned, that you can actually you can purchase tiers, so you can buy your way forward in the season pass.
Yeah.
But the seasonal boosts have level requirements.
Yes. Yeah, I saw that. And that's what I'm saying. You can do the same in Apex, you can do the same in Fortnite and all that too.
Yeah.
I think that the problem with that is that, okay, but if you buy those tiers, then there's a level requirement for the next step, so you got to play the game to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's all cosmetic, what is the level requirement there for then, right? That's the question that I have is like, okay, so then what are we putting in there to put that level requirement? Because if it's just cosmetic, then I should be able to use that level. They
said the seasonal boosts. Because the only thing that we have is just, for example, a seasonal boost might accelerate XP earned to make leveling multiple characters in a season faster. But because they affect game,
is a paid boost though.
Yeah, but because they affect gameplay, season boosts are free rewards for all players. We want to be clear that players can't unlock season boosts more quickly through purchases. There's no way to unlock more or at a faster pace by spending money.
So no, and I read that part of the article too. But my point is that that's the problem that I have. So for instance, I don't have the time. Again, like I said earlier, I'm not 15 anymore, right? So if I want to come home and spend $300 on Diablo 4, let me get through that season pass, because I'm not going to have the time through the week and through the weekend like I want to, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I'm not going to have the 100 hours of gameplay That's the point of premium currency. The point of premium currency is for people that have more money than time to be able to compensate and be on a level playing field with people. If it's all cosmetic, it doesn't matter anyways. But if a seasonal boost gives you additional XP and boosts you through the season, then someone who has more time or more money has an advantage over the casual person, which creates a bigger divide between the hardcore and casual gamers, which again comes back to the toxicity, the shaming of paid freemium stuff. You see what I'm saying? Like it's all cyclical. So until we have it in our hands, it's difficult to say. I think it's a good idea, and it sounds again just like every other battle pass. But I really want to see how it's implemented in Diablo, because I'll tell you, in Diablo Immortal, it's what stopped me from playing the game.
So you brought up, Nineball, the rush tokens, right? This token that we can earn to speed up the leveling process. As someone who dies a lot, I didn't hate it. But where do you land on this concept that, through playing the game now and through continuing the journey, you then get to speed up future characters?
I mean, it's definitely it's kind of going back to what Nerdwords was just saying. I kind of have to see it and understand, because like right now it's just like they give one example of accelerate XP earned to making multiple characters. Does that mean so I unlock the season boost at level 40 and I get an XP bonus? Is that a permanent XP bonus, for the rest of the time that I'm playing, that stacks with the other ones, and so I'm just always gaining 10% more? Or is it like a 50% XP bonus, but only for character levels 1 through 39? And so it's just making it so that way I'm leveling up a new character faster. Like what bonuses are we seeing? What bonuses are we talking about? How are they being implemented? And it's really hard to make a judgment call without having all the details on it.
Well, exactly like you said, Nineball, if the first option is what you're talking about, if it's that first option, then that is pay to win, right? Like if you can pay to get through the tiers and you get a permanent XP boost for all of your alts.
No, they said that you can't.
Right. There's level requirements, but I'm saying, again, the context matters. So.
Yeah. So, it's like, for what they're saying is that those XP boosts, or whatever the shape those boosts take, will always be free, and you can't actually pre-purchase those by buying ahead.
So the exact wording: players can purchase tiers, but they won't speed up getting season boosts. Players cannot or can't upgrade season boosts just by purchasing tiers, because they'll also have to earn level milestones to apply them. The other tier rewards can be unlocked instantly by purchasing tiers, and that's where the nebulous nature of this comes in. Is we don't know what the other milestones happen to be. Is it that sparkly helmet? But they are very adamant that you can spend your money and get your sparkle helmet. You just won't get the boost. And what does that boost look like? Is it an instant, 40 level 40 character? Is it an XP increase or anything like that? We just don't know. And I think without those details, it does make it a little bit harder.
It's also important.
I die a lot, so maybe not bad.
It's important to keep in mind here too that Rod Ferguson is leading the Diablo team, and he came from Gears of War and Microsoft. So if you want to see what the leader of this development team looks like from a battle pass standpoint, go play Gears of War 5. It's very, very similar. There's a free tier, there's a premium tier, there's a battle pass, all that stuff, and that's his baby. So, I mean, I would say that's a pretty good indicator of where it's going to go, and that system works very similar, right? It's all cosmetic stuff. But again, context matters, because if I just have to hit level 10 and then I can hit the cap on the season pass, then what stopped me from rushing to level 10 and then just buying the season pass and not doing all the things to get through it? Then it becomes a little more murky, if that makes sense. So again, we'll see how it plays out. I'm really excited to get the beta and try it out, but we'll see how it plays out.
So, obviously there's questions around that. We don't have those details, so we can't figure it out. What we do know is some of the things we can actually buy, right? We're told about this premium currency. We're given a look at the shop itself. So first, as a lore expert there, Nineball, I have some lore questions, because there's things that stand out to me that seem weird. So having dealt with a shop before, what I expected to see when I was going to purchase a set for a class was to just kind of see an armor set, like maybe not even like a painted image or anything like that, but like the armor set itself, maybe you know, kind of like a dressing room, if you will, where you see the character standing there in the animation, and we got some of those images as well. That was what I was expecting, right? I was expecting the images that they provided to showcase what the difference was between what you can get if you just play the game and what you purchase. That was my expectation. But we were given this image of well, there's two things that stand out. First and foremost, they're cards, right? These are clear cards. So that's my question one first, and I'll give you the second one right away too. So there's these cards, right? And we see the image of every class. They get a set. The druid one looks like trash, and
fitting.
It just does. I wanted something really awesome for, like, I get one image of what a druid's going to look like, and he's got a leaf on his head. And
he's a druid. What do you want? He's going to look like a tree.
Yeah, I'd like a tree. I would like a tree set. Is that so hard? I want to look like a massive, towering tree with some skulls hanging down from the branches. Blizzard,
that's not very druidic.
Steal that idea. I'm copywriting it. But I've got these cards, and I've got this artistic interpretation of the set. And then behind it, and you see the image of a woman. I don't know who that woman is, but my lore and knowledge of lore is very limited by comparison to you. So Nineball, what's the deal with cards, and who's this woman?
Well, I mean, I wish I had an answer to that. But I mean, from what you mentioned, yeah, it definitely does look like, you know, it's cards, and there's the lady in the background. Kind of like, I guess, in Diablo 3, you know, the transmog was introduced through the Mystic, and she had a very much kind of like that Romanian, you know, like gypsy vibe to it, and that's kind of like what I'm getting here, almost like the tarot like cards and the woman that might be dealing you the deck of which cosmetics that you can purchase at the time or something like that. It kind of feels almost entrapping with that, where I don't think that it's actually the same character from Diablo 3, given, you know, what I presume to be Lorath in his age, but maybe it's going to be something else that's very similar. Like you know, we're encountering another from, you know, someone else from like the Mystic clan and such, and that's going to be kind of like the driving factor for the transmogs, that will still have some sort of like in-game anchor to it or some form, you know, just more so than just clicking a button in a shop coming up and appearing.
So more like a roaming caravan that we would interact with.
Yeah, like that would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, there's no cards mentioned in any of the novels games. There's no card games in Diablo. So it's all, I think Nineball's right on. I think it's just a concept for the store to be more Diablo-esque and less, you know, freemium-esque.
And perhaps rooted in reality in some ways, of like,
or maybe it's actually Miriam, right? Maybe it's actually, maybe this is what she's doing.
It could be,
yeah, now she's reading tarot cards to people, and you can buy your transmogs through her. That would actually make a lot of sense from a gameplay / lore standpoint coming from Diablo.
Though she's dyed her hair and lost weight.
Right.
Well, maybe it's a descendant. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. We had Geed's daughter become the gambler, you know.
Right.
If I've learned anything from Diablo 3, it's Belial, and it's all a lie.
Yeah.
Because that's the story, right?
That's totally it.
True.
So outside of our possible nomads selling us gear, it is class restricted. So one of the things that Path of Exile has is essentially you buy an armor set. It fits on everybody, right? If I'm going to give you this premium currency, I'm not buying it for just one class. I'm buying it for any character I make, no matter what the class happens to be. What are your thoughts on that? Is that something that you're good with, or would you prefer that if you're going to spend your money that it's usable on any character that you would create? Nineball?
I like the concept of having class specific you know, transmogs and such, and that there's like you have an identity or a silhouette that like only that class can fulfill. I'm not opposed to that at all. It's something that I think that adds some diversification, to the classes and such. So I'm okay with that. Though I do also like, having the ability of, universal transmogs and such. And from the screens that we see, it looks as if that at least the door is open on that one, because we saw, like you're talking about, the little artistic representation on the cards, but then they did show, I guess, a bit more what the UI of confirming the purchase actually does pull up, like what it looks like, the in-game model for that Wraith Lord set for the Necromancer. But if you look, it seems that, like, it says like purchase bundle. And so it seems that the individual items themselves might be purchasable one by one, or you can purchase them all at once. And the sword in that picture is actually usable by multiple classes. It has, because you look at the Necromancer items, and it has just the Necromancer symbol, the skull with a dagger on it at the bottom of each of those pieces. And then at the very end, it also has the Barbarian and the Rogue pictures on the weapon. So it makes it seem as if, there is at least that opportunity, or that door that's open to have multi-class transmog purchases.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that they should be class specific, and I think if they're not, you get into some murky territory. Or at least if you're going to make them universal, then they should look different on different characters. Kind of like how Diablo 3 does, where you can find wizard pieces and wear them on a demon hunter, but they look a little different than they would on a wizard. There should be some specialization and some class differences for sure.
I mean, that could also be an avenue for the cosmetics and the seasonal pass, kind of like how it's done in Diablo Immortal, where you have specifically you have like the themed season, whether it be like Tyrael's set, or one of the sets from like one of the zones, so on and so forth, that the seasonal cosmetic might be universal across all of the classes. And like just the ones purchasable in the shop is because you're like buying like specifically like an identity, of what it is, something specific that you're going for. I also like the fact that you're not just buying an entire like glamour, and that you can see in that UI picture, it's individual pieces. So you still have that capability that I want to put this helm with this chest and these gloves in order to min-max my transmog, as it were.
I will add that I imagine development-wise, if you were having to take one set and then make it work on every single class, make it look presentable, it would take a lot longer, right? And from the Path of Exile experience, because that's all I'm bringing today, it's there are some sets, like, I mean, you can buy one that looks really great on a Scion, but it looks really bad on a Witch, right? So if you are specializing and it looks really good, I'm perfectly fine with it.
One being that I play one whole class in everything that I play, I feel like that was a pretty easy to guess answer for me. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's also very similar for me always playing a Necromancer.
Right.
If I'm gonna put the money in to buy a cosmetic, I want something that reinforces that class fantasy for me. Like, I
don't care if a barb can wear the same thing.
Yeah, sure. I might be cool of wanting to have like a Conan the Barbarian skin for my Necromancer or something like that. But I'm looking for bones and skulls and ghosts and ghouls. That's what I want my character to look like. I want my guts hanging out, and having a flayed open rib cage, because that set is just so fucking awesome.
I will contend that the set that drew me in the most was the Necromancer. I thought it was phenomenal.
Damn right it was.
Yeah.
Wasn't the Druid set.
It was a painting, and I'm just saying, if Blizzard would want to put out a few Druid images, it would be great. I literally would just look at it for hours.
And I'm sure the dozen people that play Druids would be very happy with it.
So much hate towards Druids.
Why the Druid hate? I don't get it.
It's just, you don't know. No real reason for it.
So we come to our last question, right? the thing that was not brought up in here, outside of the other things that we kind of have touched on, is a price, right? How much would you be willing to pay for this battle pass? How much would you be willing to pay for an armor set? We're doing market testing essentially. So Nineball, what's your price point here?
It's hard to say. It's definitely one of those ones, because when you're looking at it, what you're getting out of it, if it's just going to be cosmetics, because like if there's no way, if all of the character boosts are on the free track, and then what's left over on the premium besides just cosmetics is going to be, well, how cool are the cosmetics in order to make me want to buy into it, in order to get it, and then how long are we talking? Will a single season have just one season pass? So are we talking, is it going to be months long, or is it going to be like a monthly season pass that I need to purchase 3 throughout the course of a season or something along those lines? Or a couple of the questions, but I ideally, like if it's going to be like a 3-month season or a 6-month season, $15-$20 is not a hard sell for me. Like, and well, going above 20, it'd probably be one of those ones where I would carefully look at. Like, if you told me it's $20 for a 3-month pass, I probably won't even look at the cosmetic. I'll just hit buy, because it's like I want to support the game. I can pay $80 a year in terms of like the season pass and stuff like that. I'll probably pay $100 a year in terms of like season passes, without really flinching too much. But kind of like going more above that, I would probably be actually looking at what value am I getting from the purchase.
Robert?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is there's nothing I wouldn't pay. They could come out and say it's $50, I could still pay it. I could go on a rant about my thoughts on the monetization thing of gaming in general, but I will spare everyone that. What I'll say is this: is that games should be more expensive. I'm sorry. It's 2022, $60 for a game that you play for 15 years. Get the fuck over yourself. Pay a little bit extra to help the team out. That's my opinion. That said, battle passes typically run $10 to $15, depending. They usually last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, depending. So about 3 months, I think that's a totally fair price. But again, if they came out and said it was 30, I'd pay it. If it says 50, I'd pay it. At this point in my life, money's not the problem. It's time, right? So I have no problem supporting my favorite franchise of all time. I've literally played Diablo since I was 8 years old. At this point, shut up and take my money. I collect all your books. I collect all your T-shirts. I collect all your action figures. I collect all your statues. Of course, I'm going to pay for whatever in the game, unless you're Diablo Immortal.
So not only are you a notable streamer, you are now a notable whale. And so
or Diablo 4.
Yeah.
Diablo notable whale. Got that.
I guess. Go ahead.
I think for me, coming from in paying in Path of Exile, I was pretty comfortable throwing down 30 or sometimes it would be even 60 every 3 months, depending on the league and whether or not I was into it. I will say that if you spent enough money, they did send you a T-shirt, so that was pretty cool too. So hopefully, Diablo picks up on that. I could use more.
And just to illustrate my point a bit more too, again, I paid $120 for a pet by buying a game that I don't play, just to have another pet in Diablo. Battle, I'm not worried about. So
yeah. Because I was gonna, I only answered one half of your question, and the other half for like the actual individual cosmetics and such, for Heroes of the Storm, I've paid, for some of the cosmetics, because I didn't have the currency or anything like that, so I just easily slapped down like $15 to like purchase, what was it, I forget the event, but it's basically, it was the luchador skin for Imperius. So he's like got like the biker jacket, and stuff like that. It's like that was an easy, just instant purchase, for that type of thing. If I see the value and you're like, oh yeah, this skin is like $40. It's like, but it looks fucking badass. Then yeah, I can be a sucker for cosmetics.
With the game launching with we can assume traditional retail price, would you expect any premium currency to come in to each player as you bought the box, get you what the shop is?
Yes.
Yeah. That would also be kind of cool. It's just like a thank you for buying the game, and you get to pick out your own cosmetic. Kind of like it just gives that little bit more choice, that little bit more of a reward. It's like a thank you for purchasing the game.
But that's also, again, gaming retail side of things. That's the drop in the bucket. Like, if you pre-order Madden, what do? They give you Madden Ultimate Team.
Yeah.
Why? So you can go buy a little bit with your Ultimate Team points, and then go, ooh, this is pretty cool. I'm gonna drop 5 more. Or maybe 10 more, right? It's the same thing. So I would say yes, because it costs them nothing to do that. And it's a very easy method for them to try to earn a little bit extra here and there. So, and I have no problem with it. I think it's literally something that annualized games have done for 15 years or more. NBA 2K does it. Madden does it. I mean, hell, Fortnite and every battle royale game does it. When you buy the battle pass, you get free premium points to go buy skins or whatever else you want to. It's part of the economy now when it comes to gaming. And honestly, good for you, Diablo. Go get some of that Fortnite money. We need it in our community. Let's go get some of that.
Go get some of that Fortnite money. Love it. So any last thoughts as we wrap up on this quarterly update and general cosmetics?
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I'm genuinely excited for Diablo 4. I'm apprehensive about things, and I want to make sure that I don't get ahead of myself. But Diablo 1, Diablo 2, Diablo 3 have dominated my life when it comes to gaming, and I definitely will be playing the hell out of Diablo 4 and Diablo 3 this weekend, which I'm really excited about. So super, super excited. But honestly, until I don't care about articles. I'm going to read them, I'm going to digest them, we're going to talk about them. But until I have the game in my hands, it's really hard to develop an opinion, because it's really how all of these systems interact with each other that makes the final product and makes it something that's great or something that's not very great, right? The good thing is, and I think that the thing that we should all be hopeful for in the community, is that this team has been incredibly transparent and communicative about all of the process, regular updates, behind the scenes looks, and honestly, just speaking for someone who is a big time fan of other games, and literally I have several tattoos, but only 2 game tattoos. One of them is Diablo, the other one is Gears of War, and the fact that the guy that ran Gears of War is now a part of the Diablo team is huge. So for me, I'm really hopeful. I think they've got a good crew, and they're doing some really great things. Until I get my hands on it, I'm just going to be hopeful and keep waiting to watch those updates.
Yeah, what he said.
And there it is. So we close every show the exact same way with a nice old moo 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 moo.
Moo 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 moo.